Reproduction in animals follows a well-organized cycle, and understanding it is essential for every veterinarian. Welcome to Vet Care. Today, we're breaking down one of the most important topics in animal reproduction, female reproductive cyclicity. Female reproductive cyclicity allows mammals to reproduce by providing repeated chances for pregnancy. In mammals, this cyclicity occurs as the menstrual cycle or the estrous cycle. Most domestic animals follow the estrus cycle. This cycle begins after puberty and continues throughout reproductive life. It stops temporarily during pregnancy, lactation, seasonal influences, stress, poor nutrition, or reproductive disorders. The estrus cycle is a series of predictable reproductive events. It starts at estrus, commonly called heat, and ends at the next estrus. Estrus is the period of sexual receptivity. During this time, the female allows mating. After mating, ovulation occurs. If fertilization occurs, pregnancy maintained, and the cycle stops temporarily and resumes only after parturition, uterine involution, and lactation. If fertilization does not occur, the cycle repeats. Proper terminology is important for clarity when discussing reproductive physiology. Estrus is a noun that refers to the heat period itself, for example, the cow is in estrus and will accept the male. Estrus is an adjective that describes the cycle, as in, cattle have an estrus cycle of about 21 days. The same spelling rules apply to related term, anestrus, refers to a period of reproductive inactivity, for example, the bitch is in anestrus between heat periods. The term season refers to a specific time of year during which estrus cycles occur, especially in seasonal breeders, for example, mares have a breeding season in spring and summer during which multiple estrus cycles occur. Estrus cycles are classified based on how often they occur during the year, which helps in understanding breeding patterns in different species. According to this classification, animals are grouped as polyestrous, seasonally polyestrous, or monoestrous. Polyestrous animals show estrus cycles throughout the year without seasonal restriction. Cattle and pigs are common examples. These animals can conceive at any time of the year if health and nutrition are adequate, making breeding management easier. Seasonally polyestrous animals cycle only during specific seasons of the year, mainly influenced by day length. Sheep and goats are short-day breeders and begin cycling as day length decreases, usually in autumn. Horses are long-day breeders and start cycling as day length increases in spring, ensuring birth occurs in favorable conditions. Monoestrous animals have only one estrus cycle per year. Dogs fall into this category. Although domestic dogs may cycle once every several months, they are still considered monoestrous. Their estrus period is long, which increases the chance of successful mating. Cats, or queens, have a distinct reproductive pattern compared to many domestic animals. They are seasonally polyestrous, meaning they show repeated estrus cycles during specific seasons of the year, mainly when day length increases. This usually occurs from late winter to early autumn. Cats are also induced ovulators, which means ovulation does not occur automatically. Instead, ovulation is triggered by mating. If a queen does not mate during estrus, ovulation does not occur, and she returns to estrus again after a short interval. This results in repeated heat periods until mating occurs or the breeding season ends. This unique reproductive pattern explains why female cats may appear to be constantly in heat during the breeding season and highlights the importance of proper breeding management and population control in cats. The estrus cycle in cow and buffalo is the periodic reproductive cycle that prepares the female for conception. In both species, the average cycle length is about 21 days. The estrus cycle is broadly divided into two major phases based on the dominant ovarian structure present during the cycle, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. The follicular phase begins with the regression of the corpus luteum and ends at ovulation. This phase is relatively short and occupies about 20% of the estrous cycle. During this period, the ovaries are dominated by large antral follicles, which secrete estradiol as the primary reproductive hormone. Estradiol plays a crucial role in preparing the reproductive tract and stimulating estrous behavior. The luteal phase starts after ovulation and continues until the corpus luteum regresses. This phase is much longer, occupying about 80% of the estrous cycle. The dominant ovarian structures during this phase are the corpora lutea, which secrete progesterone as the primary hormone. Progesterone maintains the uterus in a condition suitable for pregnancy. Although follicles continue to grow and regress during the luteal phase, they do not produce high levels of estradiol. Now, when we view both phases together in the context of this graph, the estrous cycle becomes easier to understand. The horizontal axis represents time, while the vertical axis shows relative hormone concentrations in the blood. During the follicular phase, progesterone levels, seen as skinny yellow color line on graph, are low due to regression of the corpus luteum, while estradiol levels, seen as red color dotted line on graph, rise as dominant follicles develop. This increase in estradiol leads to estrous behavior and terminates in ovulation, shown at the transition point between phases. Following ovulation, the luteal phase begins, marked by the formation of the corpus luteum and a sharp rise in progesterone secretion. Progesterone remains elevated throughout most of the cycle to support a potential pregnancy, while estradiol stays relatively low. Near the end of the luteal phase, luteolysis occurs, progesterone levels decline, and the cycle returns to the follicular phase. The estrous cycle can also be divided into 4 stages: proestrus, estrus, metestrus, and diestrus. The follicular phase includes proestrus and estrus, while the luteal phase includes metestrus and diestrus. First of all, look at the graph. This graph counts days with day 0 as the day of heat or estrus and ovulation. The days before heat are shown as negative numbers, like -3. Proestrus happens a few days before heat, so it starts before day 0 on the graph. So let us start with proestrus. Proestrus begins when progesterone levels decrease due to luteolysis, which is the breakdown of the corpus luteum. This stage lasts about 2 to 5 days, depending on the species. There is a hormonal shift from progesterone dominance to estradiol, E2, dominance. Follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH, stimulate follicular growth, causing developing follicles to secrete increasing amounts of estradiol. The female is not sexually receptive yet. On the graph, progesterone declines while estradiol gradually rises. This stage lasts 2 to 4 days in cows and may be 2 to 3 days in buffalo, but signs are less distinct. Estrus is the stage of sexual receptivity, commonly called heat. Estradiol is the dominant hormone during this stage and causes both behavioral and physiological changes. Initially, the female may show signs such as increased activity, vocalization, restlessness, and mounting behavior, but she does not accept the male. As estrus progresses, she enters standing estrus, during which she accepts mating and exhibits lordosis, which is a characteristic mating posture involving arching of the back. Standing estrus is the most reliable indicator for natural breeding or artificial insemination. The duration of estrus varies widely among species and individuals. Ovulation occurs near the end of estrus. If mating and fertilization occur, sperm fertilizes the ovulated oocyte. If mating does not occur, ovulation may still take place in spontaneous ovulators, but pregnancy will not occur. On the graph, estrus is marked by a sharp peak in estradiol and the lowest progesterone levels. In cows, estrus lasts about 12 to 18 hours and is characterized by clear signs, while in buffalo, estrus is often shorter, 6 to 24 hours, and frequently silent or weak, with less obvious standing heat, especially during hot seasons. Metestrus is the transition phase immediately after ovulation. During early metestrus, both estradiol and progesterone levels are low. After ovulation, the follicle first forms the corpus hemorrhagicum and then luteinizes into the corpus luteum, which secretes progesterone. If fertilization has occurred, early embryonic development begins during this phase. If fertilization has not occurred, the corpus luteum still forms temporarily. On the graph, estradiol declines rapidly while progesterone starts to rise. Metestrus lasts about 3 to 5 days in both cows and buffalo. Diestrus is the longest phase of the estrus cycle and represents maximum luteal activity. The corpus luteum is fully functional and secretes high levels of progesterone, which prepares the uterus for embryo implantation and pregnancy. Females do not show estrus behavior during diestrus. If pregnancy occurs, the corpus luteum is maintained and progesterone remains high. If pregnancy does not occur, prostaglandin F2-alpha causes luteolysis, progesterone levels fall, and the cycle returns to proestrus. On the graph, diestrus appears as a sustained progesterone plateau with low estradiol levels. Diestrus lasts about 10 to 14 days in cows and may be slightly longer or more variable in buffalo. Let us shortly discuss key differences between the estrus cycles of cows and buffaloes. Cows usually show clear and easily visible heat signs. So, heat detection is simple and reliable. In contrast, buffaloes often show silent or very weak heat, with few visible signs, so heat detection is difficult. The heat period in cows lasts longer and is more regular, whereas in buffaloes it is shorter and varies from animal to animal. Ovulation in cows occurs earlier within the estrus period while in buffaloes ovulation occurs slightly later, requiring careful timing for breeding. Buffaloes are also very sensitive to seasonal changes, poor nutrition, and heat stress, especially during hot weather, which can disturb their reproductive cycle. Cows are less sensitive to these factors and therefore maintain more regular estrus cycles. Estrus cycle in sheep and goats. Both species are seasonal polyestrous breeders, cycling mainly during the short day season, mainly autumn. The average estrus cycle length is about 17 days in sheep and about 21 days in goats. The estrus cycle is divided into 4 stages: proestrus, estrus, metestrus, and diestrus. The follicular phase includes proestrus and estrus, dominated by estradiol and antral follicle. While the luteal phase includes metestrus and diestrus, dominated by progesterone and the corpus luteum. First of all, look at the graph. This graph counts days with day 0 as the day of heat or estrus and ovulation. The days before heat are shown as negative numbers, like -3. Proestrus happens a few days before heat, so it starts before day 0 on the graph. So let us start with proestrus. Proestrus begins with luteolysis, caused by prostaglandin F2-alpha from the uterus, resulting in a decline in progesterone levels. As progesterone decreases, FSH and LH stimulate follicular development, leading to rising estradiol secretion. The reproductive tract becomes prepared for mating, but the female does not yet accept the male. This stage lasts about 2 to 3 days in both sheep and goats. Estrus is the stage of sexual receptivity, commonly called heat. Estradiol is the dominant hormone during this stage and causes both behavioral and physiological changes. Initially, the female may show signs such as increased activity, vocalization, restlessness, and mounting behavior, but she does not accept the male. As estrus progresses, she enters standing estrus, during which she accepts mating and exhibits lordosis, which is a characteristic mating posture involving arching of the back. Standing estrus is the most reliable indicator for natural breeding or artificial insemination. Ovulation occurs near the end of estrus in both species. If mating and fertilization occur, sperm fertilizes the ovulated oocyte. If mating does not occur, ovulation still take place in spontaneous ovulators, but pregnancy will not occur. Estradiol reaches its peak, while progesterone levels are at their lowest. In sheep, estrus lasts 24 to 36 hours, while in goats, it lasts 24 to 48 hours. Metestrus is the transition phase immediately after ovulation and lasts about 2 to 3 days in both. During early metestrus, both estradiol and progesterone levels are low. After ovulation, the follicle first forms the corpus hemorrhagicum, which then develops into the corpus luteum, which then secretes progesterone. If fertilization has occurred, early embryonic development begins during this phase. If fertilization has not occurred, the corpus luteum still forms temporarily. On the graph, estradiol declines rapidly while progesterone starts to rise. Diestrus is the longest and last phase of the estrus cycle. The corpus luteum is fully functional and secretes high levels of progesterone, which prepares the uterus for embryo implantation and pregnancy. Females do not show estrus behavior during diestrus. If pregnancy occurs, the corpus luteum is maintained and progesterone remains high. If pregnancy does not occur, prostaglandin F2-alpha causes luteolysis, progesterone levels fall, and the cycle returns to proestrus. Diestrus lasts about 10 to 12 days in sheep and 12 to 15 days in goats. Dogs are non-seasonal breeders, which means most domestic dogs can come into heat at any time of the year. They are also spontaneous ovulators, meaning ovulation occurs automatically and does not require mating. Another important point is that the bitch has a monoestrous cycle, so she usually comes into heat only 1 or 2 times per year depending on breed, age, and environmental factors. The estrus cycle in the bitch is divided into 4 stages: proestrus, estrus, diestrus, and anestrus. Each stage is controlled by specific hormonal changes and produces characteristic behavioral and physical signs. Let's start from the beginning. Proestrus is the first stage of the estrus cycle and lasts on average 7 to 10 days, although it may range from 4 to 17 days. During this stage, ovarian follicles begin to grow and estradiol levels rise, while progesterone remains low. The vulva becomes swollen and a bloody vaginal discharge is seen. The bitch may show restlessness, increased affection, frequent urination, and scent marking. Although male dogs are attracted, the bitch does not allow mating and is not sexually receptive during proestrus. After proestrus, the bitch enters estrus, which is the period of sexual receptivity. Estrus usually lasts 5 to 9 days, but it may range from 3 to 21 days. Estradiol peaks early in estrus and then declines, while progesterone rises as ovulation approaches. Ovulation occurs usually in mid-estrus. During this stage, the bitch stands to be mounted, deflects her tail to one side, shows lighter or straw-colored vaginal discharge, and fully accepts the male. After ovulation, the ruptured follicles transform into the corpus luteum, and progesterone levels continue to rise. The bitch then enters diestrus. Diestrus is the longest phase of the cycle and lasts about 60 to 70 days. This stage is dominated by high progesterone levels secreted by the corpus luteum. Diestrus occurs whether the bitch is pregnant or not. If fertilization occurs, pregnancy occurs, progesterone remains high until parturition, which occurs at around 63 days. After parturition the bitch enters anestrus. If fertilization does not occur, pregnancy does not occur, the bitch enters pseudopregnancy or false pregnancy for about 2 to 6 weeks. After that the bitch enters anestrus. Anestrus is the final stage and represents the reproductive resting period between cycles. It lasts approximately 2 to 6 months depending on breed and individual variation. During anestrus, estrogen and progesterone levels are low, ovarian activity is minimal, and the bitch shows no sexual interest or reproductive behavior. This stage allows the reproductive system to recover and prepare for the next estrus cycle. Estrus cycle in cats. Cats are seasonal breeders, meaning they mainly come into heat during spring and summer when daylight hours are long. Cats are also induced ovulators, which is a very important concept. They do not ovulate on their own, ovulation occurs only after mating. The estrus cycle in cats is divided into 4 stages: proestrus, estrus, interestrus, and diestrus. Let's start from day 1, when proestrus begins. Proestrus is very short in cats, usually lasting 1 to 2 days, and it often goes unnoticed by owners. During this stage, ovarian follicles begin to grow and estradiol levels start to rise. The cat may show increased affection, restlessness, and rolling or rubbing behavior, but she is not sexually receptive and does not allow mating. After proestrus, the cat enters estrus, which is the heat period. This is the stage when the cat becomes sexually receptive. Estradiol is the dominant hormone during estrus, released from mature ovarian follicles. Estrus usually lasts 3 to 7 days, though the duration can vary with breed, age, and environment. Typical signs include loud calling, rolling on the floor, rubbing against objects, raising the hindquarters, deflecting the tail to one side, and accepting mating. Around day 5 to 10, 2 situations are possible. Mating occurs or not. So, if mating occurs, ovulation is triggered and the cat enters diestrus. The ruptured follicle becomes a corpus luteum, estrogen levels decrease, and progesterone secretion begins. Mating always causes ovulation in cats, but it does not always result in pregnancy. If fertilization does not occur, the queen enters pseudopregnancy, and progesterone remains elevated for about 35 to 45 days. This can happen if sperm do not fertilize the egg, mating was infertile or the timing was not ideal. After that the cat enters estrus. If fertilization does occur, embryos form, pregnancy is established, progesterone remains high until parturition, and gestation lasts about 63 to 65 days. Also after that the cat enters estrus. If mating does not occur, ovulation does not happen and progesterone remains low. The cat then enters interestrus, which is a stage unique to cats. Interestrus lasts about 7 to 14 days, during which ovarian activity is minimal. After this period, the queen may return to proestrus and estrus again. This cycle can repeat several times during the breeding season or otherwise the cat enters a brief anestrus in non-breeding seasons. Anestrus is a very important stage and occurs during autumn and winter, when daylight hours are short. During anestrus, estrogen and progesterone levels are low, the ovaries are inactive, and estrus cycles stop. If you found this explanation helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Vet Care for more clear and concept-based veterinary content.